everybody. Oh, I want to dance with somebody. I want to feel the heat with somebody. Hello, and welcome to the next episode of Matt and Todd Go to the Movies with special guests Marie and Tim. Once again, thank you for coming. This is the podcast where all four of us saw a movie tonight at our local Regal Cinema Theater.
Throwback.
And now we're going to talk about it in Matt's Honda Pilot, in the parking lot. We're going to bring up such things as, should you see this movie? Should you not see this movie? Should you buy the soundtrack to this movie? Should you pass on this movie altogether? Should you wait for streaming? And we're going to try to answer all those things. But first, it's going to take me a second to get over the disappointment of my welcoming everybody, and then I'm the only one that's saying. I am Todd Dover.
And I'm Matt Malloy, and I don't sing, Todd. Except for that one time where I did
Tom
sing.
Petty.
You didn't want to step on your bit.
Tom Petty. Well, anyway, yes, we're here for another episode with Marie and Tim and me and Todd. And we are going to talk about the longly named, not wrongly, but longly named Whitney Houston, I Want to Dance with Somebody movie about Whitney Houston. That's right, guys. We watched it. And the song that Todd sang is in the movie, in case you're wondering. In fact, I can't think of any Whitney Houston song that was not in the movie.
Yeah. There Will Be Miracles, her and Mariah Carey's
that was a good
duet
one.
from Prince of Egypt.
I can't think of any solo Whitney Houston song
Fair enough.
that was not in this movie.
Fair enough.
But I do love that song.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I was looking forward to it, but it didn't come about.
Well, later on,
I'll
bring
just
it
have
up
to
on
listen to
Spotify.
it, when I get home.
Have a good listen. So, who's in this movie? Well, there's an actress who plays Whitney Houston, who I don't know from anything.
Nope.
Yeah,
She's an unknown, but
now.
she does look like Whitney Houston.
Yeah.
Or is made to look like Whitney Houston at various forms.
Yeah, that's fair.
We've got I don't know if people know who Clive Davis is, but he's a famous music producer. And he's played in this movie by Stanley Tucci.
Who I love.
Who
He's great in everything.
he is really great in this movie as well.
Really great.
I mean, that's just Tucci.
And Whitney Houston's dad in this movie is a guy who I've seen in a ton of stuff, but I don't know his name.
I don't know his name, but he was one of those character actors.
Right on, I'm there.
And
Clark Peters is his name?
I don't know the name, but he's
That's
definitely been in
John
a lot of stuff.
Houston.
yeah, he's been in tons of stuff. And that's as far as I can stretch my muscles.
Yes, I think the name of the main actress is Naomi Ackie.
I think that's right.
Yes. I don't know if that. Yes.
She was in the last Star Wars movie.
I do
Okay.
not remember, but okay.
That's someone.
One
She's
of my
British.
highest
She's
rated
British
movies
apparently.
ever.
Amazing to me.
See if the guy who played Bobby Brown has been in anything.
Yeah, he was.
He was
He
in
definitely-
Moonlight.
He
Maybe he
captured.
played one of the younger versions of the older guys.
Captured the essence of Bobby Brown. I was it.
Perhaps.
He's in The Equalizer 2.
Oh, okay.
Well, anyway,
Yep.
safe to say, not a ton of
no.
people in this movie who you've seen before.
Ashton Sanders is
That's his name.
played Bobby Brown.
Okay.
Good old Bobby.
Give him
Ashton
proper credit.
Sanders. So, what is this movie about? Well, this movie follows the life of Whitney Houston. So, if you know things about Whitney Houston's life, you will probably notice them featured in this film. We pick it up as she's a young woman singing in a church choir, and she's got a semi-famous singer mom and famous singer family, and she's a singer person. And then she gets discovered by Clive Davis, and I keep wanting to call him Clive Barker, who is someone completely different.
No,
Yes.
very different.
This wasn't a horror movie, Matt.
Yes, correct. And we follow her life through getting signed and all the success and fame that she had, her famous Super Bowl performance, and then as she gets kind of connected with Bobby Brown, and they get married, and we even go into like drugs and rehab, and all the way to the end with Whitney. So you get the whole story. They didn't pull any punches. There were things in there that I didn't know about Whitney, and yeah, so that's the story. And now comes the part, Todd, where you tell us how you feel. Your gut reaction.
Gut reaction.
To Whitney Houston, I Want to Dance with Somebody, the movie.
Well, I'll start with some of the good things. I think that this movie is pretty well acted. Like, I don't think anyone really... I mean, obviously other performances were better than others, but I don't think anyone really, like, stunk, per se. The Bobby Brown guy wasn't hitting with me, but I don't know if that's just because, like,
That's Bobby Brown.
we all have a negative thought about Bobby Brown no matter what. So
It's his prerogative, Todd.
Came across, yeah. Nice.
So, but yeah, I thought most of the performances were really good. Obviously, I think Stanley Tucci, even to me, even though he's not even the main character, I think he's the best in this movie. I mean, he's just solid. He's great. Obviously, you got a great soundtrack, reliving all the tunes, and you know, that's a nice ride right there. And to see them, like, I guess what I really liked is that, and it kind of, I guess this bleeds into the story, is that I like that you kind of saw the first several years of her career, they spent a long time on. And so you could see the progression of everything. And then later in the career, when things started to somewhat fall apart, everything gets more sporadic, like, as far as, like, time flow. And I liked that in the sense of I liked the early years because none of that stuff that I knew. And I guess we all kind of know the later years, so I guess that's, you know, why they felt the power to just, you know, time jumps. I think in general, biopics will never hit right with me because at this point I feel like they are all the same. Like, big break, successful, fall into despair, drugs, what have you, maybe a comeback in some cases, and then death. Like, I feel like I just named almost every musical biopic there's been. And so it's just like, these movies will never hit that hard with me because in respectfully disagreeing with you, Matt, as you said, they didn't pull any punches. I still feel like they didn't go hard enough. Like, we don't really know exactly when drugs entered the picture. They just kind of, like, all of a sudden are there. And then I will say the most fascinating thing about this movie to me was seeing how she got her drugs. Like, that's insider information that I was like, thank you. Like, I like that. I like knowing that little secret if it was true.
I don't see why they would make that up.
So it's just like the same. And even this one, like, you know, and it's like, I can't tell if this is, like, against the movie or just, like, my feelings in general, but in other biopics about musicians, there's at least a grind, like, they have to make it or whatever. Like, I didn't know how Whitney Houston's career was essentially handed to her because she had a famous mom. Her godmother was Aretha Franklin. Like, I mean, like, it didn't, like, everything just kind of zoomed off real fast. So maybe that's why I found some of it very unsympathetic to me, because I was like, there really wasn't turmoil to get to where you needed to be, like, all that kind of stuff. You just kind of made it through, you know, she's an incredible singer, so the talent was there, but it really wasn't like she had to hit the road and play dives or anything like that. It just kind of happened. But I digress. It's going to be hard for biopics to hit with me. And as much as this one, you know, I didn't hate it. I thought it was a little too long. But yeah, I'm going to have a hard time with my final rating. But there's no reason I can think of for people to not go to see this movie. Like, unless you're just, if you're like me and biopics are like, then you can skip this one, I think. But if you're a fan of Whitney Houston and or if you're a fan of music and you're a fan of music history almost, like, you know, there's nothing screaming at me to say tell people not to see this movie. So I'm going to say people can and should see this movie if you want to. And that's me. Let's go, Marie.
Well, thanks for having me back.
Anytime.
Of course.
I honestly, I mean, I know our podcast is all gut reactions, so here we go. I'm going to need a little more time to process my final thoughts on this, which will be probably in 3 days, and it won't matter.
It'll matter to us.
Okay.
I would like an update.
Because oftentimes when we're seeing a movie, I'm really like, okay, I got to remember this for the podcast, or what do I really think about this? You know, like, is this a plot hole? All right, I have to have something to say. And I didn't do that so much in this movie because I was a huge Whitney Houston fan. And so I was having such a good time hearing her music again and kind of reliving my 20s that I didn't pay a lot of attention to the movie part of it. No, but what I loved was, so I don't have a lot of criticism, although there's definitely some to be had. What I loved was how well Naomi Ackie, I think is her name is, really imitated Whitney's, like, the lip syncing was really incredible. There were only, like, 2 places in the whole movie that maybe she was off by a beat. That was really exceptional. And I thought they did a great job making her Whitney. I also think Stanley Tucci did a fantastic job. And I had forgotten that he was in the movie, but I knew Clive Davis was being played by somebody famous, and it took me about 2/3 of the movie to realize who was playing Clive Davis, and there was just a look he had, and I went, oh, Stanley Tucci, there he is. But he was so not Stanley Tucci.
That's true, too.
You know, it took me the whole movie to remember, and I knew it going into the movie who the actor was. So
That's how good he was.
that seemed to me he did a great job. I agree with you, Todd, that they glossed over a couple of things. Like, I think her relationship with Bobby Brown was much more tumultuous than probably was presented, and I think there were some black eyes that she got, if I remember correctly, which I may not have remembered.
I think that's right.
So they didn't show any of the physical violence that I believe happened, but I don't know where I pulled that out of. And some of the pressure and challenges that she had. I actually did think it was a little bit too long, as much as I loved hearing every single song that she did. At the end, I was like, okay, it's time. It's going to happen here any minute now. So also what I noticed was I did get really sucked in, and I had all the emotions, like, she was so good, and she, like, got this break, even though you're right, she didn't have to. It was there. She had the pedigree and the talent. But just remembering all that music, which I loved, and have memories with, and then just going through the emotions of the climb up the peak and the fall, and just remembering how incredibly sad it was when she died, and that she died so young, and with drugs that she had tried to kick her body from needing. So I left feeling kind of down, where I had been kind of up because it was so fun in the beginning. So I had a whole range of emotions, which I guess that's what they wanted. So anyway, that's my 20 minutes out of the movie.
Nice. Well, Tim.
Yes, I think
keep this train going.
I'm in agreement with most of you. The biopic, is a formula, and in the last 10, 20 years, we've seen every big famous artist get a treatment and it is the same tropes in everyone, and it's the ones that don't do that stand out. And we've had almost 2 or 3 satires of biopics to this point that have also kind of almost ruined the genre in a way. But this one is perfectly fine to sit through. It's enjoyable. The performances are earnest and authentic, I would say. Like, especially Naomi, she does embody the Whitney that I'm familiar with, and even in the regular acting scenes, not just the lip syncing. Like she felt like Whitney Houston, and you got lost in like her as Whitney. And I think that's hard to do, especially when it's a more contemporary artist that you've seen a lot of. You know, it was always the disconnect for me when Will Smith played Muhammad Ali, because I just saw Will Smith the entire time, and I just couldn't fully engage in that movie. But in this one, it was Whitney, and I was on board, and it just worked. And I think, yes, they glossed over some of the more difficult parts of her life. I think that was a choice. I think this movie wanted to be a celebration of Whitney Houston, and not a let's revel in the downfall. Let's just remember the good without ignoring the bad, but let's not focus on that. And that's choice made, and I think it's, you saw, I think I saw Clive Davis as one of the producers, and I think the Houstons were mentioned in some of the credits. So this was a blessed, I think, biopic, so it was only going to go so hard. But all things considered, I still think it's a good movie. You don't have to see it in a theater. I mean, the sound is great, obviously, but those songs are great anyway, no matter where you hear them. So you don't have to see this in a theater, but it is worth seeing. It's not like you can skip that, unless you're just not a Whitney Houston fan. But it's an enjoyable movie, and like I said, Tucci nails it, and loses himself in the role, and Naomi is excellent, and it's a star-making performance, I would argue, for her. I think it's worth watching. Matt?
Fair enough.
Well, I agree with much of what's been said. I think we all
agree.
We all agree on a lot of things about this movie. So I won't rehash too much, but I'll say that I found it delightful to hear all those songs again, kind of relive a portion of my own life, my own history in walking through time with Whitney Houston songs. And I was also just like astounded at just how many hits that she's had, and just
I forgot all about that.
I forgot about that song.
So
I forgot about that
songs.
song.
Yeah.
Oh, that song. Oh,
That's-
this one.
yes,
And
yes.
just over and over, and like big hits.
I
And
felt bad for
they're
forgetting.
almost ubiquitous, like in
Yeah.
society. You just
Yeah.
know them, and even if you weren't a fan of hers, or it wasn't a genre you specifically listened to, you've heard those songs.
yes. So, I this is a bit of a rehash, but I'll just say that the essence of Whitney Houston's expression as a person was captured in this role by this actress, Naomi. What is her name? Naomi
think it's Ackie.
Ackie.
Or Aki, I'm not sure how to say it.
Let's
Ackie.
just call her Naomi.
Naomi. Yes, Naomi's great.
Well, she nailed it. She crushed it. Stanley Tucci was phenomenal as well. And I thought that they did a good job of weaving in the idea of pressure and slowly building the pressure throughout the movie as you see it affecting Whitney Houston's character there, the character of Whitney Houston. I thought they did a good job of sort of ramping that up, and you see it come into play, and you see it take its effect and take its toll all the way to the end. And I thought it was really, really a powerful statement about what kind of pressure she was under, and how she dealt with that, and what the fallout was. And I guess the one negative thing that I would say is that I really felt like they kind of dropped the ball at the end. They built up this idea of like this medley that she sang once at an awards show in 1994, and they chose to end the movie with basically playing that, not that clip, but acting out that clip from the award show as like one of the last things that happens in the movie. And I thought it was out of place. I know what they were going for.
Right.
They were going for, this is like the pinnacle of her singing, and we want to show that off.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Disagree. I didn't know those songs. I didn't hear that medley. I would have preferred that they ended with like one of her massive hits of her performing that instead. I see why they did that. I just disagree with the direction they took there. And I thought it kind of made the end of the movie fall a little bit flat. The end of the movie is the death of Whitney Houston, and you get that in kind of a epilogue here with titles about what happened to her and all the things about her life that were really notable.
I agree with you. That felt a little out of place. It was a little awkward.
Yeah. And that scene in and of itself, it was a medley of 3 songs, and it was really long.
Yeah, it was like the entire song, not unedited.
Yes. And one thing that our crack detective Tim Davis has sussed out is that this was Whitney's voice for the vast majority of the film, which I thought was a credit to the movie. So, though I was not
Goodness, thank you.
taken in by the ending as much as the rest of the movie, I will say that I really enjoyed this movie. I think it's well made, and I think that anyone would benefit from watching it. So it's gonna get a good score from me. In spite of what I consider the flaw of the ending.
Sure.
So that's where I will end up.
Sounds groovy. Well, how many drug pens would you give this movie? Which I enjoyed learning that's how she got her drugs. It just was a very interesting thing to me. So obviously 0 being the worst, because then you have no drugs. 5 being the best, because then you got yourself a party. Let's start with that.
Oh dear.
Yeah, I would have gone hit singles.
No. It's drug pen. All right.
Drug pen for life. Well, I'm gonna go with. I'm gonna say 3.9 drug pens out of 5.
Almost cracked the 4.
Almost.
It would have cracked the 4,
It's a better ending.
except the ending kind of botched it. I might have gone above 4 even, with a little bit more cohesive ending. But I'll stick with 3.9 drug pens and say, this is a good film. Have a look.
Have a look-see.
Have a look.
Tim?
I am right at a 2.9. Again, bringing up the tropes of biopics are hard to overcome, but everybody tried really hard here, and I feel like that should be rewarded.
Sure. Marie?
I'm gonna say 3.5. And I don't have a really good reason why,
that's
but
fine.
that's the number that comes to my mind.
Gut reaction. That's
Gut
what we do here. Gut reaction.
All right.
Well, I'm gonna land on a straight middle of the road 2.5, and my feelings towards that are a lot of good things in this movie. Fell into a lot of tropes. The second half of the movie to me is a lot about Whitney Houston being a victim, and I just it's like I've said, it's another movie about rich people having rich people problems, which is hard. And I'm not trying to downplay addiction or anything like that. I get it. It's definitely a rough road. But she was pretty nasty to a lot of people, and I like that they showed that side of it. But the narrative felt, oh, poor Whitney Houston, and I don't think that a whole lot. So 2.5 is where I'm at.
Fair enough. Well,
quite the range we got going on tonight.
Quite the range indeed. Any last thoughts before we wrap up?
It was a nice reminder of her music
Yes.
and her talent and what got lost.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a good way of putting it.
Agree. Well,
I kind of wish we got to hear My Prerogative a couple more times through the
You
movie.
just heard the beat.
I wish-
Just every
I wish
time
we had
he was
gotten
on
the
screen,
lyrics.
it's in the back playing.
I wish we could have gotten some lyrics. All we got was the beat. Well, I do have to say special shout out to Matt Hostetler, who we
Yeah.
saw in the movie theater tonight. An old friend of Todd and I. 20 years ago.
Yeah.
It's probably been that long since we've seen him. So anyway,
Also true, probably.
randomly showed up in the bathroom at the same time.
Hugs in the bathroom.
Also
you know,
wanted
like,
to dance with somebody.
he was also seeing the movie.
He was seeing
just
the
at a
same
later
movie.
time. It was magical.
Magical.
Yeah.
He
So
brings people together.
Matt Money Hostetler.
yes. All right. Well, that's going to wrap it up for this episode of Matt and Todd Go to the Movies with special guests Marie and Tim, where we watched Whitney Houston : I Want to Dance with Somebody. And we gave it an average rating of 3.2 drug pens out of 5.
good.
It's a good rating. We had a little bit of a range going on, but I would
But above a
say
3 is solid.
that everybody gave it at least an average rating. And I think we're all in agreement that you if you like movies, see this movie.
And if you like Whitney, you have to like Whitney.
If you like Whitney,
Yeah.
really
It'll
need
only
to see
help.
this movie. Yeah.
I can't stress enough that my rating reflects how I feel about biopics.
Yep.
Like, so.
And that you hate Whitney Houston. Admit it, Todd.
I wasn't
Admit
gonna go
it.
there, but
Indifferent.
I mean, they don't touch on anything that happened with their daughter. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
there's a,
I don't think they wanted to focus on it.
you know, I'm saying go hard or I'm not gonna be a fan.
You're not going to get the family blessing.
You're waiting for the unauthorized
Right.
Whitney Houston :
The one that-
unauthorized.
that's on
The
Lifetime.
unauthorized, more true story of Whitney Houston, probably.
Fair.
You won't get Stanley Tucci for that.
No, you will not.
Unfortunate.
Well,
You don't
anyway,
know. We could be besties. Me and Stanley.
You could
You
be.
could.
Yeah.
And that'd be
As
awesome.
far as we know. Can we get him on the podcast, please?
I'll have to check.
Okay. Good. Well, thank you, listeners, for listening, and subscribers for subscribing and listening to our wonderful, if I do say so myself, podcast.
It's pretty good.
That's pretty great.
Pretty great. And we will see you next time.
Da 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 da
Da da
da da da.
da da da.